Hey guys, welcome to part 10 of this Serum overview. We are going to be discussing modulation inside of Serum now. So this is going to be broken up into two separate videos or two separate parts just to talk about both the connecting drag and drop style that you can do inside of Serum for your modulation, as well as the mod matrix, which will be in its own video. So what we're going to do first is just talk about how the modulators work and what they look like. And then what we're going to do is I thought it'd be cool to actually show you how important modulating sounds are in Serum. So we're going to take this bass and we're going to turn it into a really big gnarly growl bass with nothing but modulation. So before we go any further, I'm going to talk about this bass real quick. It's two oscillators, both A and B, have some digital waves. I have a filter set up. I have my sub oscillator on. No noise is turned on. In the FX slot, I have hyper dimension, giving it some width and some stereo presence. Okay, I have distortion loaded up, but even though I have the mix up high, I have the drive down low right now. I have a second filter active. I have reverb, compression, and then some slight EQ. So that's everything that's kind of going on in the actual sound before we start the modulation. All right, now on to how modulation works in Serum. Well, you'll see here on any of the envelopes, when you click on them, we talked about this before, are the LFOs. Anytime you click on one of these tabs, you'll see this crosshair appear. It looks just like the crosshair in Native Instruments Massive. So that means you can click on it and drag it anywhere. And if you drag it somewhere that Serum doesn't want it to go, you'll see right now I have kind of like the, I don't know what that symbol actually is, but I know it has a name and I'm just blanking on it, but it means you can't drop a modulation connecting point there. So if I arrow over any part of the synth where it will let me drop a connecting point for that specific modulator, it will have a big, nice, friendly green plus. So you can see most everything is fair game. You can modulate your pitches up top. You can modulate every knob in your oscillator, noise oscillator, as well as the sub oscillator. You just can't modulate the octave in the sub oscillator. In your filter, you can modulate pretty much everything. You can't modulate these little controls, but of course, you can self-modulate into the envelope with the envelope if you wanted, or into a different envelope rather. You can modulate LFOs into envelopes and so forth. So that's the idea of how this drag and drop connecting point modulation works inside of Serum. Okay, so let's make some connections to some random destinations really quick just to see what it looks like. So I'm going to take my second envelope, click on it, and I'm going to apply it to my wavetable position. Well, right now you'll see this little half circle appears at the very top of the knob that we made the connection to. That's telling you that you have an active modulation source connected. Now, if I click and drag down to the left or right, you'll see this line move left or right. Well, right now this is a plus or minus, depending on which way you drag it, connection or modulator. So you can see that visually by the way the line is going. And it'll actually show you. See where it says envelope 2A, wavetable position -54. So we're moving in a negative direction from where we set our knob at. So right now, for instance, let me show you this on a cutoff because that'll be a little bit easier. So right now, here's our cutoff point, the little tick mark on this knob. Well, our modulator will only add frequencies depending on how our envelope is shaped to that. It'll never take it below. Well, if we go to the opposite side now, it'll be taking out frequencies. So let's listen to this. Okay, so it's taking out frequencies, and this will add frequencies. Okay, so that's how that idea works. Now, here's a tip and trick on how to control something with these modulators. If you need to remove them, right-click up here, and you can click bypass, and then it will gray out the depth of the modulation, but you'll still see that the modulation is there with that little semicircle. And you can right-click or control-click on a Mac and remove it if you so choose. And now let's talk about actually how to make this a unidirectional modulating source. And by that, I mean it'll move both negatively and positively. If you hold down Shift and Alt on your keyboard and click, let me drag some of this out. See, now it's dragging out both ways equally. So now it's going to move in between the depth of the modulation, both in a negative direction and in a positive. So I'm going to apply that to my cutoff filter now. And see now, right now it's just positive. And I'm just going to hold Shift and Alt or Option and click. And now it's moving in both directions. So it'll have a whole different effect on the sound. All right. And again, to remove those, you right click or control click. You can remove just that modulator or all modulators for that source. So I can remove all envelope 2 modulators and they would all go away depending on where I have them. And let's actually make a couple more connections. I'm gonna make some random ones just to show you this. Remember we talked about how this 3 denotes how many connections you have with that source. So right now, if we go to envelope 2 and we want to see which, let's say you're on a different tab, let's say you're in a global tab or you're on your FX slot and you want to see, okay, wait, where's my connecting points for my envelope? If you just arrow over it, it'll tell you destinations, wavetable position, A volume, and uni blend. So you go back to your oscillator and you'll be able to see that. So there is another way to view what connecting points you have active, because these are all going to be the same color. Like if I drag an LFO into a modulator source and connect it, see it's blue. So everything's blue. So it's not like massive where you have different colors and it's all color coded, which is fine because it's set up very nicely. So that brings me to my next point. When I click on LFO, you'll see all these envelope 2 modulation points that we connected, they go away. They're still there, and that's why this envelope 2 has the 3 on it, and you can actually arrow over and see where your connection points are. So basically, you'll only ever see the active modulation for whatever modulator source you are on, whether it's envelope 2, 3, LFO, 1 through 4, and so forth, or even your velocity control or your note control. So that's how all of that works. Let's talk about this little strip here. These are your macros, and if you've ever used Massive, you're going to feel really at home with this. It is essentially the exact same thing where you can create custom macro controls to control multiple modulation destinations or sources at the same time. So I already created a couple just to show you, and I have this speed. So we're going to be making this into a growl bass, right? And I'm going to have a LFO shape that's more conducive to a growl sound. Well, right now I have a rate level or a speed. So when we pull up that LFO shape, that's going to actually make this more of a growl sound. This will be modulating. So if I want a slower wobble, I can turn it down, or if I want faster, I can turn it up. So I only have one source connected to that, but I called it speed. And then next I have drive, and this has 2 connection points. So if we arrow over it, we can see that's on filter drive and filter variable. Well, if I click on my filter here, you'll see that I have it on drive and I have it on the fat or the variable. So this will make it a bigger, kind of girthier sound. And when we have more of the modulation done, you'll actually hear that'll have a very prominent effect to the sound. So then I was going to show you how to make one from scratch. So what you do is you click in this little right-hand side across from the knob, and you'll see that connecting point appear. So let's say we want to make I have some effects pulled up. So let's say I want to make a reverb one for some reason. Well, I'm going to click there and drag and drop. And now this is going to be my mix of my reverb. And we can actually make the size bigger. And so now if I move this up and down. Okay, and then you double click where it says the word and you can rename it. So I could call this reverb. So this wouldn't be a very good one to have on a growl bass, but it would be, I'm just showing you so you can see how to make one from scratch. And then to clear it, I can right click again and remove all destinations. Now watch these reverb controls, the macros that are active on it, remove, and they go away. And it removes your name for you. Okay, so that's a crash course in actually how the modulation, the drag and drop modulation works inside of Serum. So let's start modulating the sound so we can actually turn it into a growl bass, just so you can see how this works. So first thing I'm going to do is let's look at these envelopes. I need to get some movement in this sound because right now it's just a bass. It's a pretty bad bass at that. So let's go to my second envelope because this is the shape of my main sound. And I have a short envelope already kind of pulled up, I guess. And I'm going to pop this on, let's see here. We can put it, I'll put it on the bend for oscillator A. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of positive modulation. So if I turn this off, here's what we have. So this is adding a little bit of harmonic warmth, I would call it. Okay, let's go to let's keep connecting on some points. I'm going to now let's go to the oscillator B, and let's see this. Let's get this Reese wave. If I solo this, it's a good wave. So I'm gonna put it on the level. just so it increases with this envelope shape. So we have some push and pull now between the two oscillators level output. I'm going to put it on, let's put it on the cutoff for the filter. All right, that sounds nice. I'm going to put it on the resonance as well. And I just want some, of that digital. Okay, so that's sounding better. I think that's going to be good for envelope 2. Let's go to envelope 3. And I already had, I guess, from sound our previous tutorial where I was showing you the attack lengths. I have this. This will actually work for growl bass. So it's nice to make different shapes with your envelopes because it adds depth. So by that I mean not every modulation source is going to be happening at the exact same time. Okay, so let's just keep on making some new connections with this envelope 3. I'm going to go to, let's try the phase. And you can see right now that this is on a unidirectional one. Let's try it, see how it sounds. All right, I like that, so we'll keep on. We'll just move along. Let's go to oscillator B now with this third envelope, and I'm going to put it on the wavetail position. So now it's moving slowly through the wavetable, whereas this one, I don't have a wavetail position on it. So let's go through and put this on the blend as well. And we will do a positive modulation for that. Okay, so the sound's starting to have the quality that you would look for in a growl bass. It's just all the frequencies aren't there because I have something obviously going wrong in the filters or even the distortion potentially on this sound. So that's going to be it for the envelopes. I have now made 4 connections with each envelope 2 and with both envelope 2 and envelope 3. So that's going to be, we have 8 in total plus these 2 down here, which have 2 plus 1. So we already have 11 modulation connections for the sound. So let's go to the LFO. It's going to be the heart and soul of the sound. I already saved a growl shape LFO that I created, and it works just for the movement of a growl bass. So we want this on envelope because a growl bass, if I have it on trigger, it'll keep repeating like a dubstep wobble. Well, growl bass is a one-hit type of thing, so keep it on envelope for this. And now we're going to modulate a few different parameters with this. I'm going to go to, let's go to the effects first. Now I'm going to modulate some effects. So I talked about in the effects video that you can modulate certain parts of any rack or module itself inside the effects section. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. So let's actually modulate the EQ. All right, you can hear the sound. I took my LFO and I'm modulating downwards on this low pass EQ. And I'm going to modulate upwards on this top part. All right, so I'm liking how that sounds. Now let's actually modulate the drive as well with this. Okay, so it's starting to sound right. I think I have a little bit too much resonance on one of those envelopes. Let me turn it down. All right, let's go back to the effects slot with this LFO. I'm going to now modulate the cutoff of this other filter that I have. So now I'm having a low bandpass, high 12, blended with this Moog low 24 filter. And let's see how that sounds. All right, I'm going to put it on the morph as well. And I actually kind of like a negative connecting point for this. So what we might do is I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt and click. And now it's a unidirectional and see how that sounds. Okay, I'm going to keep it on, I'm going to boost that drive a little bit, turn down this EQ. Okay, so that's starting to sound a little bit more growly. Let's go now and modulate some destinations inside the synth with this LFO. I'm going to pop it on my wavetail position. gonna do a negative connection for that. I'm gonna put it on the blend. All right, let's put it on the wavetail position for oscillator B. And I might put it on the level for oscillator B as well. Okay, and let's put it on the sub output as well to get some more bass frequencies in this guy. All right, I might even play around with it on the cutoff filter. Okay, so let's go back to my filter and see how prominent this is on the sound now. Okay, so it's pretty important. Let's try loading up, just see what happens, a format filter. I like how that sounds more than the other one, so we'll keep it as is. Let's move around the modulator we have. Okay, so now we have a talking growl bass. Boom. So I wanted to show you that real time because I wanted to show you the importance of modulating in Serum. So this kind of got out of the overview part of Serum and now got into sound design. Let's talk about all the modulation that we've done. There's 4 on both envelope 2 and 3. We did 11 different destinations with LFO. We did about 4 or 5 in the effects, and we did a bunch in the actual synth. And we have these are actual macros here. They each combined have, one of them has 1 and 2, so it's 3. So we have 3, 4, 4, that's 11, plus 11, so that's 22. Let's go to our matrix now. This will be a good segue into the next section. You'll see automatically that they all go and show up in the mod matrix. So any connection that you make with these actual drag and drop macros and modulators will show up in your mod matrix. And that's a perfect stopping point. So I will see you in the next section.